I'm Tara Brabazon. I'm the Dean of Graduate Research at Flinders University, and welcome to vlog 117, Great Grad School. Or to translate it from the North American inflection, how to select a very strong doctoral program for you. And welcome to this very early, very glorious morning in Adelaide as the sun is coming up. It's quite delightful. So I'm in a rather good, rather giggly mood, for which I apologise, but let's have some fun today. And this vlog request comes from via Dylan. Hi Dylan, hope you're fantastic. And it was a great suggestion because Dylan quite rightly said the last few vlogs have been investigating the latter stages of a candidature, and he wanted some assistance in selecting a graduate program in the first place. What sort of PhD program actually enables you to complete? And that's a great suggestion. But also I wanted to present this information for the men and women out there who are thinking of transferring from one program, one university to another. And the figures on the transfer rate of PhD students between institutions is a bit woolly, if I'm honest. I've tried to find some good data on this, and needless to say, a lot of institutions tend to mask it. But it appears about 10 to 15%, perhaps could be a lot higher than that, but 10 to 15% of students who attrit from one university then pop up at another. So the information I'm going to talk about today might also be useful for you, yes you, if you are thinking of transferring through a program as well. And this vlog 117 is paired with the next vlog 118 that is a request from Daniel. So the gentleman D's we're investigating in the next couple of weeks. So we've got the wonderful Dylan and the wonderful Daniel. Now Daniel said I'd been a bit too buoyant and optimistic about supervision, and he said, well Tara, why don't you do a vlog on bad supervisors, like Bad Santa? Do a vlog on bad supervisors. And look, Daniel, I won't do that because that is just a bit too negative, even for an old goth like me. But what I intend to do is help you select a supervisor, right? Because at the end of the day, there's no such thing really as a bad PhD program or a bad supervisor. There's simply a bad program or a bad supervisor for you. And yes, there are caveats on that, but what I'm going to do in this vlog and the next is offer a series of either or options for you, priorities for you, if you will, for you to sort yourself out and for you to work out what is important to you when you're making your selection about your future, your research, your career. So what I'm going to do in this vlog is get a really good sense of who you are and what you want. And what I'm going to get you to do is when you're making those decisions, start to weigh up what is important to you, and that will help you choose a great grad program. I also wanted to summon a piece from the Times Higher Education, a piece of journalism. I think it's the highest read piece of journalism I've ever written, and it was published I think in 2016, and that piece was titled 10 Truths a Supervisor Will Never Tell You. And I used a line in that piece: as a prospective PhD student, you are precious. Institutions want you, do not let them treat you like a fool. End of quote. So over 2/3 of the students in any doctoral program in any institution around the world, about 2/3, are not on scholarship. In some national systems, 90% of students enrolled in a PhD program are not on scholarship. So what that means is you're not on a scholarship. If you're on a scholarship, then you're wedded to an institution because they're paying you. But if you're not on scholarship, then you know what? You have rights. And most importantly, you have choices. So let's help you get somewhere truly fabulous. Let's talk about the variables that maybe people don't tell you, truths that supervisors don't tell you about how to make that selection. And can I say, since I wrote that piece in 2016, I've changed my mind on a few of these variables, and in fact I've found some new ones that I think are really interesting proxies to monitor. Now, when you select a great program and you think about the proxies and the decisions that I'm going to provoke you to make today, the decision that you make about which graduate school, which doctoral program you're going to go into is crucial. Dylan is right, because it is the difference between finishing or not finishing, or finishing in the minimum time, and your thesis dragging out like an eviction from Love Island. Okay, so let's get to Dylan's request. Great grad school, you rock, Dylan. Let's think about how we get you into a good doctoral program. And that really demands that we think about actually for you, what is a good doctoral program? So all sorts of books exist about how to select a graduate program. I always remember the Haggerty and Doyle book, 50 Ways to Screw Up in Grad School, 57 Ways to Screw Up in Grad School. And in that book, and can I say, I don't like that book, it's a really poor book, but most of the ways that they list to screw up have been caused by the student, not by the institution. Bless. So good luck with that. But the point is, if you select a good graduate doctoral program, then a lot of these problems, these opportunities to screw up, disappear. Because you see, systems, structures, policies, procedures, perhaps have universal design, allow some redundancy in them, and allow students to make mistakes. I had a wonderful student in my office, I think 2 weeks ago, and she came in quite upset, and she said, look, Tara, I think I've made a mistake, really upset. And I said, I won't say the student's name, don't be concerned about that. You're a student. You're meant to make mistakes. And that's the point. We're in a system where if you make a mistake, that's okay. We have systems and strategies to manage it. So therefore you need to pick a university where those systems and strategies are in place. Now, we now live in a world where you can select to do a PhD from anywhere in the world and to anywhere in the world. Where you live does not mean you have to do your PhD in that location. We have deterritorialisation in place. So firstly is, just because you live somewhere doesn't mean you have to do your PhD there and doesn't mean you have to move. Full stop. Also remember, there's all sorts of PhDs out there. PhD by prior publication, the artifact and exegesis PhD, also of course the suite of professional doctorates, and yes, the traditional doctorate. And also, importantly, particularly for my wonderful North American viewers, hi guys, don't assume that the model that you're used to for what a PhD is actually is generalisable. So if you're interested in doing pure research for 3 years without coursework to get a PhD, then you need to enrol in a PhD program in Aotearoa, New Zealand, Australia, or the United Kingdom. And then you will complete a research-only PhD in 3 years. So where you live does not determine where you can do your PhD. Deterritorialisation rules. So that gives you as a student incredible options and incredible flexibility, because you can suddenly enrol in a PhD anywhere in the world. So when you are selecting a graduate program, a doctoral program, do not be limited by your physical location. First rule. Right, so therefore let me present some other variables for your consideration. And let's start with the obvious one, and this is about you again. Let's think about reputation of the institution. Now, if you are lucky, you will find an institution with an outstanding international reputation and the supervisor that you want. Now, that institution may be from the Ivy League, it may be from the Russell Group, it may be from the Group of 8. Now, I did one of my research degrees there. There was no supervision in my area, so therefore, surprise, surprise, the supervision was really, really poor, but I didn't need a good supervisor. I just wanted to get it nice, clean, in, out, shake it all about, high quality, research masters in that case, from a posh university, thanks for playing, no worries. So it depends on you, and you've really got to be honest with yourself. Do you require an actual proper supervisor to teach you stuff? And if that's the case, then you have to be led by your decision by the supervision, not by the institution. If you just want to go to a posh place, go to a posh place, but remember the supervision, the disciplinary expertise may not be there. You may be lucky, the chances are you won't be. So the first decision is really what's more important, the reputation of the institution or you getting the high quality supervision on the field that you are going to do your research on. Now, the particular rub, the particular challenge comes with the interdisciplinary theses, the really out there research, the really radical, wonderful, boom research. Now, that staff, of course, is very rarely placed in the old school elite institutions. In fact, I was recently asked by a quite posh journal, can I say, to list the 100 most edgy interdisciplinary scholars in the world at the moment. And can I say, in my sort of fields, you know, the big sort of new humanities, if you will. And can I say, not one of those scholars was at the Russell Group, at an Ivy League university, or in a group of 8. None of them. But therefore, is it about the brand? Is the brand, the reputation of the university, the driver for you? Then let it be thus. Go to the elite universities. So, balance the desire for the qualification and the reputation against your need for a supervisor in and on your discipline. So therefore, let's talk about the supervision. Do you need an attentive supervisor? Do you need a scholar in the field who can actually guide you through the research? Do you need an attentive supervisor to help you? Now, if that's the case, that's your deal breaker. You need to find a great scholar, a brilliant scholar, right? Now, where this gets challenging is the really great supervisors with a reputation in the field are probably very, very senior. And the question therefore is, have they got time to give you proper supervision? So you really need to ask those questions. If you choose the best, and I want you to choose the best, but you've got to do it with your eyes open. If you choose the best, then they keynote all over the world, and they have publishing deadlines all over the world. They probably also have a leadership role at their university, and indeed a national and international leadership role. So they may be away a bit, maybe away a lot. And so you have to be conscious of that. Balance the reputation of the supervisor with your need for attentive research. Now, there are fantastic scholars out there, top of their field, who yes, go away a bit, but are there a lot and are fantastic supervisors. They're rare, they're special, they're precious. If you get one, you are winning. But you've got to ask the questions and be real in your expectations, right? So I'm going to talk more about the selection of supervisors in the next vlog, the one for Daniel. Bad supervisors. No, it's not that. But what I would suggest is really be clear about what you require from a supervisor and ask those questions so right at the start there is a good match. And also one other crucial variable that no one ever thinks about, and this really does matter. And again, this is why I've changed my mind in the last couple of years as I've become dean. Look at an institution who not only has one supervisor in your field, but has a cluster of expertise in that field. Now, this is really important because supervisors leave. They get another job, supervisors retire. So, if you can, look for a cluster of expertise, a diversity of viewpoints on the particular topic that you are interested in. And what an amazing experience that would be to do a doctoral research program. Fantastic. So we'll talk a little bit more in the next vlog about the supervision bit, but do remember, what I'm arguing for is not one great supervisor, that's a gift and wonderful, but a strong supervisory culture. So you've got lots of voices and views to help you through it. So this stuff is pretty easy, isn't it? A university with a good reputation and a supervisor that knows what they're doing, like duh. But my final few tips are stuff you would not look for that are actually proxies for all sorts of different definitions of quality, but also innovation, flexibility for you and for your enrolment. These variables will also increase the speed of your candidature. So if you are paying fees, you need to make sure that you're guaranteed a speed of completion. Here are some proxies to try and get that guarantee. Wow. A great library and truly great librarians. Don't just focus on the building or the online library, look at the expertise of the librarians. It's amazing how rarely in doctoral education we talk overtly about libraries and librarians. What I do week 1 with my PhD students is I introduce them to their librarian and they become their best friend. And that librarian, I adore librarians, but librarians care for PhD students. So when they find something interesting, when they're searching, they send it to the PhD students because they care about their candidature. So libraries are also, can I say, proxies for the investment by a university in research. So if you're interested in a particular field, put a key book or a key author into the search to that library, online library or the analogue one, and see if they have source material on that area. If they do, then it's a well-resourced institution. Straightforward. But yes, the collection matters, but it's the skilled, talented, intelligent librarians that I'm most interested in today. Their expertise, their brilliance can transform your PhD. So look up the librarians, look up their qualifications, look up their international professional reputation, look at their specialisms, look at the online support that is available, and see how this crucial part of the institution could simply transform your thesis. The next variable I want you to assess is, again, another proxy. It is the website for your university. Look at the software, look at the hardware, look at the interfaces that are available. Look at the capacity for you as a student to engage with the university digitally. And there's a reason for that. Say you do start your PhD in one location. The majority of students don't finish their qualification in that institution. They get a job, their partner gets a job, something happens in their life. So a good program is able to move digitally with you wherever you are in the world. But the software, the interfaces, the apps have got to be right to do that. So make sure, for example, when you're in your PhD, you can submit your milestones or your annual reviews of progress digitally. Make sure there's a digital examination in place. Make sure the commitment to the university is to innovation and to flexibility for the student and, yes, for the supervisor. The other great characteristic I want you to look for, that again no one ever does, and it's really easy to find if you know what you're looking for, is the professional development programs for both the student and the supervisor. You see, the best universities not only give you a PhD, but value add to it on the way through. Just having a PhD these days is not going to get you a job, but you need a series of bespoke strategies and skills you can bring in as required to give you that edge, to get you that work. So we need to prepare you now for consultancies, for teaching, for learning, for all sorts of jobs and posts that maybe aren't even invented yet. So make sure there's a really interesting, dynamic, edgy, digital PD program for you, but also monitor the professional development available and required from staff. Remember, most academics don't have any teaching qualifications. It's assumed if you have a PhD, you can supervise a PhD. Really? Well, of course, that's not the case. We mustn't confuse experience of doing a PhD with expertise in being able to supervise it. So make sure that there are programs in place where supervisors are trained to supervise and they're trained to keep up to date with what's happening in international andragogy. So you might find in your institution something like a supervisory register. So staff members have to do something to be able to supervise. Because please remember, supervising a PhD student is a privilege. It's not a right. It's a privilege, it's not a right. So if a university says, oh, you have a PhD and you're breathing, and therefore you could supervise a student, I'd step away from that vehicle. Make sure there are requirements that are necessary for a person to be able to supervise a student, and that they must be able to be kept up to date as andragogy and contexts change. The final variable that no one ever looks for when they're thinking about a good grad school or a good PhD program is a visible graduate office or graduate centre, or of course some wonderful universities have a graduate college. Now, when I took this job about 2.5 years ago now, I described it in a video as the goalkeeper of the university. And of course I was just about to enter this job. I'd always wanted to do this job. I get lots of different offers around the world, but I would have regretted it in my life if I hadn't been a Dean of Graduate Research, because I'd always wanted to be one. And I did describe it when I got the job as the goalkeeper of the university. So you are a football goalkeeper. Most of the time, people will forget that you're even standing there. And that's absolutely right. They need to forget that you're standing there. But the role of the goalkeeper in football is to simply hold our line. Hold the line. But of course, when penalties happen, the goalkeeper can either win or lose it for the team. So the equivalent to penalties in our space are, of course, academic and research integrity issues, supervisory committees or panels simply imploding or exploding, something very serious happening to a student with regard to mental health or family or other sorts of problems, and staff just needing gentle, quiet advice about a situation that's emerging in supervision. All sort of invisible, quiet work. But also the national quality assurance work that's necessary in this space. How do we connect the degree at one particular institution with what's happening nationally and internationally in terms of standards? You often hear me say, in these vlogs and beyond, that we see students on the best days of their life and the worst days of their life. So a graduate office or a graduate centre needs to be staffed by highly qualified, highly experienced, really outstanding human beings who have the specialist expertise in graduate education, which is really, really rare. It is like the goalkeeper. There is only one in a team. There is only one in a university. They are the problem solvers. So when things go wrong, and things may not go wrong, but if things go wrong, they will take you by the hand and move you through the system. So let me explain to you how I got here, right? How I ended up a Dean of Graduate Research and why I care so passionately about an office or a centre or a college of graduate research, why this particular area matters so much. And it is a personal one. Now, I did my PhD at a pretty posh university with a big name supervisor who I never saw and who didn't read a single word of my PhD. Bless. And that's all fine, not bothered, zero bothers, did it easily, not a worry, fine. The problem came in that he wouldn't sign the thesis off to be examined. Now that's a problem for everybody. It was a particular problem for me because I just finished a one-year job, a one-year contract, and I'd managed to get another contract, welcome to the times, I'm sure you're seeing similarities here, a 3-year contract, and that was great. But to confirm that 3-year contract, as I was leaving Wellington and going to Queensland to confirm that contract, I had to have submitted my PhD. So you see the problem, I had to submit the PhD to move from my 1-year contract to a 3-year contract, but my supervisor wouldn't let me submit my PhD. And I'm in Wellington. I'm all alone. I'm about 24 years of age and I need to get a job. Okay? So what am I to do? What am I to do? On Easter Thursday, and I was starting the new job on June 1, on Easter Thursday, I sent 3 copies of my bound PhD to the graduate office at my university at that point. Just no supervisor signed it off. I just bundled them up at the Wellington Post Office and sent them to the graduate office. And 2 remarkable professional staff in that office, Karen Alkowski and the wonderful Anne Randell, 2 women I still know, took those theses, organised examiners, 3 best examiners in the world, and sent my PhD on its way, signed off by the Dean of the time. And it came back 3 A's, passed without correction, no worries at all. So this is an important story, because when the academics failed, the professional staff succeeded. And those 2 amazing women in that office changed my life. They made my life. So that's why a graduate office matters so much. We get the policies and the procedures in place. We confirm quality assurance for staff, for students, for examiners, yes. And we also ensure that your local university is attached to international best practice. And you know what? If all goes well, you'll never hear from your Office of Graduate Research like ever. It is like being the keeper for Manchester City on a really good night playing against Burnley. My respect to all the Burnley fans out there, but let's face it, the keeper's not going to be too bothered against Burnley. Yep. But on a bad night, when City is playing Manchester United at Old Trafford, the keeper needs to be on their game. Yeah. So that is the role of an office or a centre of graduate research, checking the qualifications, checking what's going on with your supervisors, but also, most importantly, your examiners. So you know what? Do a search for the dean. Really, do a search for the dean of the graduate office, the dean of the graduate college, the dean of the unit, and start to look at who that person is. Look at their qualifications, look at who they are, and see if they've got some sort of international currency in who they are doing, who they are, and what they are doing. Because you don't know what you need until you need it. So Dylan, I hope this has helped you a little bit in thinking about who you are as a PhD student and what you're going to be after going forward in your program. And for all the men and women out there right now who are in one program and are thinking of transferring, before you take that enormous leap in your life, think about the variables I've discussed here. Check them, have a checklist, and make sure you're not jumping from one bad situation to another. If you're in a bad situation, then move to a good one and use this checklist to help you. So think about quality. Think about the service that you require to enable your success. And I use that word service with intent. It is a word that says to me, we care for you, we are with you, and we help you on this journey. So I wish you love, light, and peace. Tea out.